So my name is Rene Neumann. I'm a solutions architect with ZPE Systems, and I'm just going to take you on a small tour. I have a couple of slides, not too many. I really want to show you the product, how the product works, and go from there. So what I want to look at today is literally, so how would you typically run a branch office? How would you deploy a branch office? What I've done here is essentially I've built out a small little rack, which could stand in a small branch, in a small office, a small shop. At the very top, we have a Nodegrid Gate SR, which is part of our service router family. In the same rack, we have an old Cisco router, an old Cisco switch. We have a white box server, which will run some form of edge compute solution. We have a rack PDU, which controls the power and provides the power to the rack. We have a temperature sensor, an access point, and a camera. And really the goal of the demo is, I want to take you on that road is, okay, what happens if it's a brand new rack? None of that is configured yet. You don't have access to any of those. Essentially, you just send smart hands on site with the boxes. How do you get them up and running? That is the premise of the presentation, of the demo. So more from a networking perspective, what are the different parts which we're going to look at overall in the presentation? I'll break it down into different sections. But overall, we are going to use the ZPE Cloud to push the configuration down to our ZPE system. That will provide access to an overlay network in which I have a real automation orchestration system here in our case, as an example, Ansible Tower. It can be, you can use ZPE Cloud if you wanted to, but one of the important things from us is we try to be vendor neutral. So if you already have an orchestration software like Ansible Tower, like UbiCube, like Blueware, or you name them, we will enable you to use them already because you already use them very likely in your networking and with your other equipment. So at the very first step, we use ZPE Cloud to provision the Nodegrid. And as part of that provisioning, we will gain access to the overlay network. And then going from there, from the overlay network, we will then finalize the provisioning of the device. And we will start getting access to all the different components which are on site and which our smart hand was clever enough to cable up properly. So far, any questions?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I see here LTE and VDSL. So VDSL is an access technology. So actually, so what protocol basically you're using on this access, MPLS, or what exactly do you use?
So LTE is standard LTE, VDSL is normal home consumer DSL lines, VDSL lines. We have them a lot here in Europe, where you just have your normal subscription lines. Typically, what you see a lot in, I'm living in Ireland, what you have here a lot in Ireland is your fiber to the cabinet, and then the last mile is provided through some form of VDSL connection.
Okay. And see that the actual interface is Ethernet, right? You're getting Ethernet drop in from the VDSL, right? You're on the other side of that device.
No, actually, we are getting a real VDSL connection. We have a small SFP module where you plug the RJ11 cable in.
Okay.
Okay, so you're not using any overlay here. It's just as it is, the VDSL.
That's correct. It's VDSL as it comes out of the box.
Okay.
Correct. Okay. So let's directly start because we are lagging a little bit behind. So the very first step is zero-touch provisioning. What I want to show you first is we will have a quick look at ZPE Cloud. I will show you a little bit around there. To save time, I will directly jump at the very beginning to provision the box. That will take a minute or so, or a couple of minutes. In that time, I will show you a little bit more around the ZPE Cloud. And What we are going to end up is here at that point is literally that the unit will have a very uniform configuration, which you can apply to any box. And the goal is that we get access to our orchestration software. That is the goal for step one. Okay. So what you're going to see here right now is a login page for our ZPE Cloud system. So when you log in, the very first page, which you're going to see is our dashboard, is a map view. I created a couple of sites with a couple of devices in our demo environment. And essentially what you can do is you can associate a device to a site, and then you can directly see if the site is up or if the site is in a failover mode. And you can then drill down onto a site and get access to the site. I'm going to show you that in a minute. If you go to devices, you will see a list of all of your devices. And we are differentiating between enrolled devices. So these are systems which are already managed, which are already have a configuration, which you're using on a day-to-day basis. And then you have devices which are available. So these would be typically devices which are currently on the way to remote sites. You might have an outage, you know that the site is down or something like it. So you can have devices in that available state. My system, which I'm going to use right now, is at GateSR. That is currently in a factory default state, so there's nothing on it. The only thing what is currently on it is literally there's an LTE connection, which connects the device back to the cloud, and that's it. Okay. So all what you need to do is you just highlight the device, you click on enroll, and what is going to happen in the background is that at that moment, I can drag over a console connection so that you can see that a little bit. Yeah, that doesn't work. Oh yeah, because I'm full screen. Essentially, in the moment I pushed it over to enroll it, an default configuration is being pushed out to the device. That is a profile which I defined early on. I do that under profiles. Here you can upload your own profiles. You can use existing templates if you wanted to. But essentially what we are providing is two types of configurations. You can have just a script. There can be any script you want to write. There can be a Bash script, can be a Python script, can be a Node.js or anything of the form, or we are providing configuration files as well. These are essentially CLI files, which you can write. So we have a CLI, like most network devices. What you can do is the same commands which you would write down in the CLI to achieve something. You can just paste them into a text file, and that becomes that configuration file. I'm going to briefly show you what is in that default settings one. If you click on Edit, and essentially, these are the CLI commands which I spoke about. They're just simple set commands. You have a couple of paths which you're going to through. Essentially, all what I'm doing is I'm creating a user. I'm setting a couple of passwords, defining a couple of default services just to harden the box a little bit further. Like disabling TLS 1.1, which is disabled by default, but disabling 1.1. I whitelist a couple of IP addresses, which I trust, these kind of things. I push a couple of firewall rules, which are very, very basic, very, very generic. And then at the very end, I'm pushing my overlay network. Probably worthwhile mentioning here, as an overlay network, I'm using Tailscale in this scenario is not something which comes by default with the box. But we make it really easy if there are already precompiled packages available for Linux. Then there's an easy way that you can typically port them onto our box and directly run them. So Tailscale, for example, is an overlay network based on WireGuard. We have WireGuard in the box. And that is the reason why it's really, really easy to install it, to set it up, and to directly run it. If you just want to use the connectivity which comes out of the box, then we support VPN, your standard VPN connectivity like OpenSSL, IPsec, and WireGuard. directly out of the box. You just need to configure it. Okay, so let's briefly go back to devices. My device is here. That is a Gate SR. You can see it's currently on the LTE connection. Still has a default name, Nodegrid. And what I can do from here, or I can do it from the dashboard, both are identical. I can click on Connect, Web, and that will open up a new page. Now, the very first time, that can take a while, specifically over LTE. My LTE connection isn't the fastest in the world.
I have a quick question. I think I might have missed it. For the zero-touch provisioning, how do you allocate an unprovisioned device to a specific customer's cloud account?
You didn't really miss it. So we have multiple ways of doing it. Typically, during the sales cycle, we can directly provide you either with a claim key. And essentially what the claim key is, it associates a serial number to your account. Or second option is, if we know upfront who the customer is, we can directly assign the serial numbers to the customer as well. Worst case scenario, if you receive a box and the box wasn't assigned to you at all, you can claim it as soon as the box is in your hands.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let me log on. As you can see, the speed isn't fast. And trust me, I don't have LTE in my area here. That is good old UMTS. So as you can see, there's nothing really configured here. The sensor is plugged in. So if I would click just on the sensor, I would directly get an overlay. I can directly see the temperature and humidity values here. But essentially, even from a networking perspective, if I go to network connections, all really what I had to do is just put the SIM in, turn the device on, and it picked up the LTE connection. Okay. So that is essentially the very first part. So there's literally nothing what you need to do as a customer to provision a box. You turn it on, the unit will automatically talk to our ZPE Cloud. The unit was assigned to you beforehand as part of the sales process. You have a profile there, you assign it to the unit, and as soon as the unit comes up, the unit puts the profile down, and you're done. You're ready to go. Okay? And you can make the profile as complex or as simple as you want to. I just choose a very simple one, which I can assign to any box. No IP addresses, no host names, nothing which is box specific at this point. Okay? We're going to get there in a moment. So as the second part, we're now going to push the final configuration, the full configuration. What I'm going to use here is I'm going to use Ansible Tower. I have a couple of Ansible playbooks in a Git story, Git repository. Ansible Tower has my inventory. I can show you that if you want to take a look. The configuration will contain the LTE configuration, the VDSL configuration, the entire network configuration for the internal network will contain more firewall rules and a couple of other settings. Essentially, a full configuration for the box. At the end of that step, you have access to the out-of-band interfaces of all of these devices. Okay, so if it's, for example, for the Cisco switch, we will have console access. If it's the Meraki, we will have access to the Meraki setup SSID. And we're going to have a small camera as well, so we're directly going to have access to that camera. Okay, so that is the goal of that step. So let me briefly go over here. You probably all, well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ansible Tower, but essentially it's just an orchestration, or it's an orchestration software, right? So you have your projects, which is essentially your Git repository where you have your playbooks. You have your inventories, which contain your hosts. Here I have a very, very basic one, the DEZPE, that is inventory that is the keeps all the settings for the Nodegrid device in itself. We can go through that one in a second if you're interested. And then you have your templates, which are essentially your playbooks, where you assign your playbooks to your user credentials and to the inventory. That is what these templates are. I have a couple of them here. One thing which I really want to start off right now is the full configuration, because it's going to take a while, specifically as a very first step. Takes a little bit longer as it's being pushed out over the LTE connectivity. Okay, so that will take now around about 4 minutes. Depends a little bit on the speed. Do you have any questions at this point? Is there anything you want to see? Now I can show you a little bit more about the ZPE Cloud, how that looks like, if you want to.
I have a question, quick one. So how many 4G links you have, like primary and backup link you have normally?
So in most units support up to 2 active LTE connections. So you have 2 modems. Each modem can have up to 2 SIM cards. So you can have 1 active SIM card per modem with a backup, but you can have 2 modems. And most of our devices, the Nodegrid service router can take more, and all others have the 2.
These modems are built in, or you have a USB port that supports a dongle also?
They are built in, but they are optional. So when you buy the unit, you can either buy the unit with the LTE modem or without, but they are part of the unit. They're not soldered to the box as such. They're module inside the box, but they're not connected through USB or anything like it.
Okay.
Okay. So it's going to, as I mentioned before, it's going to take a while. As you can see here, started to push already a couple of things. Okay, it's currently at the network configuration. Okay, typically after that one, it goes a little bit faster because it brings up the main interface as well at this point. So let's go briefly back then maybe to the ZPE Cloud. So as I mentioned before, you have your dashboard here. Let me do one small thing. Let me take the device, which we just had, and assign it to a site. So this specific device I want to assign to Germany. You might have already noticed it doesn't say Nodegrid anymore. And that is because I already started the configuration. Part of the configuration is a host name. The host name was already updated in our ZPE Cloud. So the ZPE Cloud is continually updating the configuration which it sees on a device. So I just select it, click on Add, assign it to Frankfurt, click on Add Site. And now if I go to the dashboard, you will see that Frankfurt is green. If I click on Frankfurt, I will directly brought down to the device. And again, I have here now my console interface of my web interface. And what is going to happen after a while, after the devices, the managed devices are getting populated on the device, they will become directly available here as well, so that I can directly jump onto them if I wanted to. So if I want to start a console session, I can directly do it from this interface as well. If I directly want to jump to the web interface of my camera, I can directly do it from here if I wanted to. Or if I have a virtual machine running on it, my firewall, my IoT data collector, I have directly a console connection or an out-of-band connection to that one as well.
So on the transport of that, is it just, so is the control just TLS, from the box back, and then when you're actually having to port forward to, say, a VNF or to a web interface or SSH or whatever, is that just some sort of socket forwarding that you guys are pulling back over TLS back to this controller?
It's actually a perfect question. So the number one, probably to address, how do we connect? How does a box connect back up to the cloud? Yes, that is purely TLS connectivity. All the connectivity is initiated from the device going out. So there's no option that the cloud can actively connect down to the device. The first initiation, the session needs to be started off by the device. That allows us a couple of things. Number one, it allows us to punch through most of the standard firewall rules. If you have web access on your firewall, the device will just work. The second thing is, if you don't want to use ZPE Cloud, there's no way that ZPE Cloud can force itself onto the device. Okay, there's an option on the device where you can disable it. So from a pure security perspective, the connections, the sessions are always initiated from the device to the cloud. We maintain a permanent session from the device to the cloud. We use a message bus to exchange a couple of messages. And let's say you want to start the web console or session to a device, then yes, first of all, we exchange a couple of messages over the message bus, and then we use a web proxy as a forwarder. What is probably worthwhile noting, though, is like the web pages, everything which happens, all the sessions which are happening from the device, from the Nodegrid down to the end device, are happening from the Nodegrid, from the appliance down to the end device, and then they're getting forwarded. So the web page gets actually rendered or gets terminated first on the Nodegrid and then forwarded. So in that sense, we're acting like a terminal server. And that allows you access to internal web pages, for example. So even where you have no network access or anything like it, you get access to your cameras, to the Meraki setup page, for example, which are typically web pages or interfaces which you don't even want to expose to any internet traffic. Typically, I wouldn't trust any camera to have internet access in any shape or form. Number one, I don't trust the software. Number two, those cameras are probably in your site for the next 10 years. And any software which can survive securely without security holds for 10 years, I think that still needs to be written. So you probably want to separate all of those traffic or the operational traffic into a separate network, make sure that they only need access to what they really need to have access to, and the rest you can directly have from the Nodegrid. Okay. So let me see briefly how far we are.
And Rene, I think we only have a few minutes left as well.
Yeah, and quick question. Do you have feature parity on both IPv4 and IPv6 across the board?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wanted to show you a little bit more, but I can definitely show you some of the basics, at least. Hang on a second. I probably sent the wrong password. Yes, I did. So what you can see right now is the unit is already configured. The first device is already up. And what you can do now from here is literally access all the devices, as I mentioned before. So for example, for the rack PDU, you can just click on its name. You get the outlet status. In a couple of minutes, that page will fully populate itself. You will get the outlet names. If they are on the PDU maintained, you will see the outlet names. You have outlet control from here, so you can turn on and off outlets directly from here. You can even associate them to end devices. For the Meraki, I mentioned that before. If you click on the link, you will get to the troubleshooting page of the Meraki, which is only accessible from the inside, for example. You have no full visibility to it. So for example, if the Meraki currently doesn't have internet connectivity, from the Nodegrid, you still can get to it. You can troubleshoot it from here. The same is true for the camera or for the Cisco switch. I mean, the Cisco switch is just a standard serial connectivity, as you probably know from other out-of-band systems.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the URL at the top, if you guys are looking at it, how the traffic actually goes through that access.zpecloud.com through that unique link. And that's essentially how we are bridging those devices from an out-of-band access in that secure way into this infrastructure.
Yeah. So I realized that we are literally essentially out of time. I was hoping to get a little bit to show you a little bit more. Other options, what you can do is like doing bare metal deployment of an edge server by just deploying a couple of Docker applications and then essentially do a PXE boot on the server. And so on and so forth. So there are multiple use cases for the unit directly on site, and
Perfect, Rene. Thank you for that. I think we'll probably do a recording of those demos and put them on our website so that folks can come back and watch the rest of your valuable demos.